Cauliflower with my brother Ben Roy.
Hey.
TV's Ben Roy.
TV's Ben Roy. Yeah. You were asking me like, what do you want me to say? And I never know. Like, I feel like I do too much. And so, but yeah, thanks for doing this. This is cool. We were just talking about Professor X.
Professor X, yep.
Yeah. And what an enigma that dude is. He lives like the kind of life that I want to live. Like, it's always like food, and then you'll see he's like beautiful people, and then he's at some crazy party, and you're like, and yeah, he's
in Rio de Janeiro today. He's in a small town in Brazil. He's in LA. He's in Vegas. He's in
Was he like that when he was younger?
Yeah, he's a free spirit. I mean, the reason why I'm here today, or we're talking here in LA, is because he bugged me to go out. We were staying in Santa Monica like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I met my wife there. He was bugging me to go out the day before the tournament. I was always real serious. He was always a free spirit, and he convinced me. Okay, after bugging me for I don't know how many hours, so I finally went, and then met my wife. 20 years ago. Just
does he ever taught you about that? Like I it's because of me you met your wife.
Man, he went to my house.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law was there, and he's like, it's because of me, huh? They're all this here. All this is here. This is because of me, right?
Yeah.
Because we were with our kids, our 3 kids. Mother-in-law.
That's crazy. It's not surprising though. I think when you're around people like that who are kind of open for anything, anything happens.
Yeah, if you're open to the possibilities.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's really funny that you did not, because I've always thought, like, when I started training here at Legacy, I've been very intimidated by you because you're a very quiet person. And even when I go back to Easton, because when I'm in Denver, I train at Easton, Amal is that kind of free-spirited. Yeah. It feels like with the times I've met him, he's very... You two obviously started together, and like...
He's like my big brother.
Yeah. But...
He's the one who took me down to Brazil. I mean, that's the reason why I do it today.
Yeah.
It's because he is that free spirit. And he's like, I'm going to go down to Brazil. I'm like, okay. And then he came back and he started showing me stuff in his garage.
And I don't mean to interview you, but I'm kind of curious. Is that typical of you? Did you tend to flock towards people who were a little more like free spirity? Like
maybe it kind of compliments me, huh? I guess because I'm kind of like real serious, real straight, And those guys kind of open my eyes, or open the possibilities for me.
Yeah.
So it's good for me. They're good for me.
Yeah, because I wonder that, because I feel like the people that inhabit the gym, the black belts that come up, are much different than you are, which is because when, like I said, when I first came here, I was like, I'm not entirely. You have a way of like having training, and you'd be like, looking, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. I know I'm doing. So it's kind of nerve-wracking just because I'm very like a super anxious person. I have very high anxiety, and so I have to like, and people who are like stoic like you are, that straight-faced, I'm like, I'm doing something to upset them. So, but
how'd you get into jiu-jitsu? What brought you to the mat?
Well, how serious do you want to get about how dark can it? I mean,
talk anything you feel comfortable talking about.
Yeah. I was always like, I grew up in Maine, in a super little town, and like,
what was the name of the town?
It was called Augusta. Well, it was Winthrop, which is just outside of the capital. Okay. But I, grew up in the '80s, and I was obsessed with like the Karate Kid, and then when I was in grade school, I went to a summer camp. I've spoke openly about this, and I was assaulted. I was sexually assaulted. It was a Catholic camp.
Wow.
And so part of the agreement with me going to the camp, I didn't want to go to camp to begin with. I was kind of nervous about it. I was only like 7 or something.
Wow.
And I remember not wanting to go, but my parents said, if you go, you can take karate. I remember them saying that. And we went and looked at a karate school, and I was supposed to stay for, I think, a month. It was a month-long camp, and they came in between on the weekends. And they were like, if you stay, you can go. But then this stuff started happening, and I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. I don't think I knew how to tell them how. Yeah. And so after 2 weeks, I wanted to leave. I threw a fit enough that my parents took my brother and I home, And they were like, well, you didn't finish, so you couldn't go. And it always stuck with me as like something connected to this that I had wanted to do. And there's also like when you grow up and you experience something like that, there's like a sense of, well, it's not going to happen again, you know? And because of that, I think growing up, I always like questioned my masculinity. You grow up and something like that happens especially in a small town, you don't want anybody to know. Yeah, you don't want anybody to find out because masculinity is currency in a small town. And so I ended up just meeting a lot of the wrong people and getting into a lot of trouble and being around people who were super angry and violent. And I moved to Colorado and I had a job. I was sitting at the desk and it had always been, I'd look in the phone book, I'd flip to the back and look at the ads for martial arts.
What brought you to Colorado?
A guitarist in a band. He had gone to visit somebody in Boulder, a cousin, the guitarist for the band I was in, and he called and he's like, I'm not coming back. I remember he's like, I'm sending for my clothes. So
You're still in the small town in Maine?
In Maine, and I went and I was drinking a lot. I had a drug problem, and I went to visit him. I flew out to visit him, and I'd never seen anything like Colorado. The mountains, and it was sunny all the time, and just a different vibe. And so I packed up and moved 6 months later, and I never looked back. And when I got there, I got a job working in a call center, and I was like looking online, and I was like, someday when I'm an adult, I'm going to take martial arts. And then I was like, wait, I am an adult. I can spend my money the way I want.
Yeah.
And I always loved jujitsu. This was in very early 2000s, and I was like, I found a jiu-jitsu school, but it was Japanese. And I didn't know there was a difference between...
Did you watch the early UFCs?
Yeah, but somebody had told me, I didn't know about those until probably like, that really didn't like get me into wanting to know jiu-jitsu. It was because I remember my dad telling me about judo and jiu-jitsu. He was like, they use other people's force against them. My dad would tell me that. And he was like, you don't have to be as strong. And I never thought of myself as strong. And I was like, well, that's the martial art for me because I'm a weakling, you know? And so I went to a Japanese jiu-jitsu school, and for 4 or 5 years, I thought I was learning Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
In Maine?
Yeah, no, this was when I moved to Colorado.
Ah, okay.
When I had finally moved on my own to Colorado.
Damn, you're in Boulder and everything already, huh?
Yeah. Damn. I went to a school called Colorado Academy of Martial Arts in Littleton that taught Kempo Jiu-Jitsu. And the first day, my buddy, after about 4.5 years, I'd worked my way up to a brown belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and I thought I had a brown belt, and a buddy brought me to a Muay Thai MMA school where they taught BJJ, and these guys beat the dog shit out of me. I went and I was like, yeah, I know jujitsu. And then I got on the mat and they were like, really? You take it? And I was like, yeah, I'm a brown belt. But that was in Japanese jiu-jitsu. These guys beat the shit out of me. And I was like, oh, I don't know jujitsu. I don't know. And that was when I switched. I quit. I never finished the belt in Kempo Jiu-Jitsu. I appreciate them for like sparking that interest in martial art, but I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I switched, and then that's when I got into BJJ and it's grappling, and that's when I like
how did you find Easton's?
So Easton,
or why did you go there?
Well, so when I moved here to LA, because I sold a TV show, so I had a TV show for 3 seasons. Called Those Who Cant, because I started doing stand-up in Colorado as something to do, and I moved to LA when we sold the TV show, and I got picked up, and it was filming in Van Nuys High School, and so I would go back and visit friends, and they trained at Easton. They were like, you should come do open mat. You should come here. And they're the ones that told me to come to you.
Oh, okay.
Because I was looking for a jiu-jitsu school out here, and they were like, you should go see Alberto Crane. You should go to Legacy because they all love you out there. And so I was like, I looked
without the Easton.
Yeah. And they ended up just being so kind, and I think it's a testament to Elliot and to Mike Tousignan and Amal, their characters because the school has just such a welcoming vibe. And they were like, "Oh, if you like this place, you should go see Alberto." And so I started. I originally trained with this guy named Carlos Gomez, who was one of
Jerson in LA.
Yeah, one of Jerson's black belts. Great guy. It was just a small club, and they didn't have the ability to have a schedule I needed. And I kept telling them that, and they were like, "You got to go see Alberto. You got to go see Alberto." And then it just right time. I came here, and immediately I was like, "I love this place. Everybody is so nice, and it's the same vibe. It's very welcoming, good training, but not like this ego." And that's what I think, relating to my past, that I felt like. That's why I'm so nervous. I'm always like shaky when I talk. Like people are like, "You're a comic," because I'm not very sure-footed with like. I'm just a nervous person until I'm on stage and I'm in control of the situation. And so, but yeah, it's been nice to be in Colorado, like to have that there and to be able to come here as well and feel like it's part of that family.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We're all one, for sure.
Yeah.
The roots, we're both from New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And like I said, it was so interesting to finally meet Amal and see when I saw how different, that's when I started to put in my head, especially like thinking like we were talking about with Professor X and Amal, I was like, it seems like Alberto flocks to people who are maybe
free spirits.
Yeah. You're like, maybe they make you laugh or I don't.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Because he's very much that. He's very different.
For
and,
sure.
But yeah, it's Colorado. For instance, I bounce back and forth a lot right now.
What was your TV show about? The one you sold?
Oh, it was so dumb. It's called Those Who Cant, and it just finished after 3 seasons. And we played teachers in a struggling Denver high school, like a fake high school but it was like we were awful, terrible people. And, so it was a comedy and, super inappropriate and dark. And, we sold it off of a web series. Okay. Everything I've ever done, I think, has just been kind of on our own.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think I was going to be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to rehab. I was addicted to pills for a little bit, and I had a drinking problem, and I ended up getting sober in May of 2010. But in living in Maine,
10 years ago,
I thought I'm not ever going to be anything. And you were talking about fate of meeting somebody. I moved to Colorado, like I said, and I came back on a trip and I met a girl at a party in Maine when I was visiting my family. And I decided to stay because I was so infatuated with her, and that became my wife, who I'm with now. And then I convinced her to come back to Colorado with me, and she took a job at a comedy club. That was all it was.
How crazy is that? Huh?
She wanted to get a part-time job, and she started taking IDs.
You went back to Maine. You met your wife, came back.
Came back. And I was like, "Do you want to get out of Maine?" And she's like, "I don't want to live here anymore." And neither did I. And so we left. And she looked in the back of like a newspaper, and they were hiring for people to take IDs at Comedy Works, which is the big club in Denver. And I tried to talk her out of it. I tried to tell her it was a stupid job. I was like, "You're going to be up till like 4 a.m. and it's sport coats and chicken fingers." I hated comedy. And she got that job and changed my life forever. I started hanging around the club, and a manager convinced me to try an open mic night because she thought I was funny and weird. And she was like, "You should try comedy." And I did, and it took off, and that's
what year was that?
I started doing stand-up in the winter of 2003. So I'm now 16 years in. And then I quit for a little bit because I was drinking too much, and I had been kicked out of every comedy club in Colorado for a short time because I was very unpredictable when I drank. I was mouthy, and I would pass out places. And then I started to get a handle on that. And then in 2010, when I got sober, 8 weeks later, I got into Just for Laughs, which in comedy, JFL in Montreal is it's kind of the Olympics of comedy, or the it's the biggest thing. At that time, there were only 16 people on the planet who chose to be new faces, and I was one of them. And so I went up there, and that's when I quit my job. I could start being a comedian full time. I started touring clubs, and then I got my first few TV like things, and
TV like comedy shows.
Yeah, doing stand up on TV. I got my first TV spots on. I did a thing on Comedy Central, and then we sold our TV show in 2013 to Amazon, of all people. They bought it for their new burgeoning streaming platform, and we wrote 6 episodes for them, and they aired our pilot on Amazon Prime, and somebody from Turner Broadcasting saw it, and TruTV came along and bought the rights for the show, and that's when they were like, we're buying a season. I couldn't pay my rent that year. 2014, I didn't have money for rent. And I got a call sitting at my table from my manager who was like, TruTV just bought 13 episodes, and my life changed like that. Like,
so you became the
TV's Ben Roy.
TV's Ben Roy.
But it's kind
Snap of a finger.
Yeah, and literally in a day. I could not. I was like, it was Christmas. I remember it was one of the most depressing times because we were literally like struggling at that point to make ends meet because you're
doing comedy
full time, and you don't make a lot when you're early on traveling doing stand up. It's not a very lucrative business. I mean, you tell somebody
made you happy.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been that way. You know, I would give it all up to just do something that I'm happier doing, or that like to chase a passion. And I'm sure you're the same way. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine in the building of a martial arts school throughout the years that you've been doing it, how many times it was like, what the heck? Like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? You know, like,
I mean, if you know Amal's story too, like he had a bunk bed, that he built in the back of the gym, in the original Boulder gym.
Really? I did not know that.
Just to make ends meet, because he was struggling, right? It was before The Ultimate Fighter. People didn't know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. They knew karate and they knew taekwondo, right? So he committed, yeah.
How did you find out about it?
I'm sure about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So there's a Navy SEAL that was a student of the Machados that moved to Santa Fe. And there was a class that he taught. First it was 1 time a week and then twice a week. And these guys at this restaurant that I was working at after high school, they were all doing it. And they convinced me to go in finally. Amal was one of those guys.
No way.
Yeah.
And they just, from a Navy SEAL, what was he, a blue belt?
He was a blue belt, but he would put on a black belt at the time, So we didn't know, but he was honest, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I got tapped out by one of the friends that I was working with 10 times. He armbarred me, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, let's go again. Went like 10 times, yeah. And I was like, oh, I love this stuff. Yeah. I never stopped.
I think that's like been the big thing so far for me, is that everybody you train with shares that same thing where you're like, the first time you go in, you're probably getting like tapped out.
Yeah.
It takes a certain type of personality to go, I want to keep doing this over and over.
Yeah, you want to win, right? You want to win.
Yeah.
And so I remember that. I remember just training so hard that I'd ride my bike from my mom's place over there. And I remember being so exhausted from sweating so much and training so much that.
How old were you?
18.
Wow, that's crazy.
That I could barely ride my bike. I had to go to like the store and get some water and Gatorade or something.
Do you ever watch videos from that? Do you have any videos from that time?
Not too many. It was before. It was like those big VHS cameras, right?
How do you think the jiu-jitsu was at that level when you first started? Do you think it was? Like,
there's some wrestlers and there were some judo guys in there,
Yeah.
There were actually really talented martial artists in that first group.
Yeah.
So I mean, considering what we knew, they were tough guys.
Yeah.
They were tough guys, But even from like 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, right? Everything. So 10 years ago, it's the technology, right? That kind of makes us learn faster.
Yeah.
YouTubes and the streaming stuff, like
flow grappling and things like that.
Even inside the gym, right? They have like learning websites, and so information gets exchanged like I mean, instantly almost, right?
Right.
Even before it's out there at the tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu prior to the UFC, because I don't think that anybody would have understood. I mean, it would have been, what is Brazil like? There's no like.
I mean, I remember taking my wife's cousin to visit Santa Fe, and she's like, "What is going on there? These guys are panting. You know, they have their legs around each other.
Yeah,
they're hugging each other on the ground. Like, what is going on?" They had no, she had, you know,
like
crazy. She came in and watch it.
my mom came to like a fundamentals class that I was teaching. She's like, "I want to see, you know, what you're doing," and I was teaching a fundamentals class. She looked confused as hell. She was just like, "What?" And still has that, because my mom's not seen the UFC. She doesn't have any. She knows what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is by what I tell her. That's it.
You know what changed it from my mom? Because my mom, you know, for a while, but of course, she became like my top fan. But the Hickson Gracie choke video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That changed it? You showed it to her?
I showed it to her. She watched it.
And she understood.
She started loving it. Yeah. She's like, "This is good."
Yeah.
It's good for you.
That's a badass person.
He was connected to nature. He was fighting, and she felt it. She's like, "Yeah."
Because I remember seeing that. At
first, she was like, I was coming home with scabs on my face and on my chins, and just, you know, getting like black eyes and coming home all like roughed up, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, she saw how focused I was and how I got in like really, really good shape.
Yeah.
So she liked that, but she was like, I don't know if this is good for you. And then she watched that video.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay.
Did she feel the same though when you went to Brazil?
She saw how determined I was at a young age, that, you know, she didn't like it, but it was my own money. It was my own, you know, so I made the moves, you know.
I can't even imagine at that time going to Brazil. I
mean, I met a mall. I mean, Elliot, so we call it a mauling. You know, the fact that he goes to Brazil, you know, I didn't speak any Portuguese. Neither did he. You know, it was before iPhone, so you're looking up all the words in your dictionary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You got a mauled. That's totally how because Elliot is, I don't know Elliot or Amal especially. I know of them, and I've met them, but Elliot strikes me as a little bit more intense, and he's he's very friendly, but he's a super intense dude. And that's another one where I look at those two and I'm like, this is such an interesting.
Different, right? But
yeah.
Together they're strong.
Yeah, very strong.
Yeah, I met Elliot. I just had we had him on the show.
I know
last week.
Yeah, great.
And I remember him as a white belt cleaning the mats. He
was
a poor college student, and he cleaned the mats, and he did a really good job. I remember that. And he started teaching kids classes after that. This is like 20 years ago.
Wow.
So I've seen him grow up. I've seen him become like a champion, a black belt champion.
Yeah.
Go to the UFC, winning the UFC, and just, you know, it's been amazing. And now he's like, you know, the partner with them all. Like, you know, it's perfect.
Elevation.
You know? What a perfect, Elevation MMA team coach, you know, for all these UFC guys. So it's really cool to see him grow up with that.
He's a very like
and doing well, you know?
Forward like movement type person. Like he seems like you just keep your legs moving, because that's what I relate to. I think for myself, that's how I've always been. Like I have I don't believe in myself a lot. I tend to be very like self-conscious, and I'm nervous about myself. So I overcompensate for things. I just overdo things. I overdid it. I overwrote with stand-up. So I am always surprised that people like the things that I'm doing, but I put like so much more effort into it because I don't believe in myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I overcompensate.
Like athletes are great compensators, right?
Right.
No matter what they have going on, they find a way.
Right.
But that shows.
And I think that's exactly what it is.
It shows greatness too.
Yeah. And I like, even with jujitsu, like if I have the time, I'm always here. If I can train every day, I'll train every day, because I think I'm not good at this. I'm not physically fit. I'm not a strong person. I don't have that like fighter's mentality. So I always think I've got to compensate much harder. And it's the same with comedy. I thought, well, I didn't finish high school. because I flunked out. I went back and got my diploma. Thankfully, I was smart enough to do that.
Got your GED?
No, I actually went and finished up full courses to get my actual high school diploma because I was like, I gotta do that. And so I went to like summer school, night school things. But comedy, I overwrite everything. I overthink it. I ask and answer all my bits. They're very long because I'm like, I'm not smart. I think I'm not intelligent because I didn't finish high school. So I tend to overcompensate. And in an odd way, it's what I think has made me successful at doing this so far is that I don't believe in myself. That's kind of a backwards way of thinking.
Hey, man, people right? People find different motivations, right? Like, it can be fear, it can be whatever, right? Like, whatever it is, right? Motivating you. Yeah. But no matter what, like, not everybody works their ass off. Yeah. To become what they want to become, to be good at, become great at whatever they're doing.
Do you always?
So where does that come from you?
What, the insecurity?
No, not that. Like the hardworkingness.
Oh yeah, the work ethic. I think my mom growing up was very, like, growing up in Maine. I mean, there was a lot of feeling that women were supposed to be a certain way. You know, my mom was never that. My mom got her master's degree while she was raising us. She grew up in a little town in the middle of northern Maine, right on the corner of Canada, and her parents just wanted
Nova Scotia, right?
Right. She's so my parents didn't speak English when they started school. They learned English in school.
Where are they from?
They're French. So I'm French Canadian.
Oh, okay.
So my last name is actually Awa. But I say Roy because no one can pronounce it. They always say Benoit, which is not a flattering nickname. And then my mom's last name is Gaillon. So like everybody, they all talk like this. Everybody in my family did growing up. They were all French Canadian. And but they grew up in a very like rural area where women weren't supposed to like have careers, you know. I think, and my mom didn't want any of that. She worked just as hard as my father, if not harder. And growing up, I remember her raising us as teenagers, but going and getting her master's degree, like sitting at the table while she's dealing with me as an annoying teenager. And my dad is the same way. I mean, my dad grew up in a super alcoholic household, tough upbringing, and ended up going to school and then became a cable executive on his own. And I think that like shaped me watching them because they were both like, they weren't the types to say it necessarily. They didn't like, but I'm a firm believer in like, be the example. If you just do it, your children just naturally through an emulation, they want to be you. Yeah. So, and I think my mom was very like bullheaded like that. And I think that's a big part. Not to take away from my dad, but I think seeing a dad work a lot is kind of a stereotype. Yeah. But seeing a mom who
maybe both Beast parents, huh?
Yeah,
hard workers.
Yeah, they were very hard workers. My mom is still, much to my, pisses me off because she's still working. She's supposed to be retired, but she's a pain in the ass with that. She just got hip surgery. She goes right back to work. She's just got a strong work ethic. She does not, and I'm the same way. I'm an idle hands. If I sit around, that's why I do the band. I tour with a band. I have 2 podcasts right now. I'm writing another project, trying to pitch another project show. That's why I'm here right now in LA. Is pitching a new television show. And then on top of that, doing stand-up. I'm releasing a 4th album in March. And I just constantly have to be doing something.
What's the name of the album?
This album is called Scattered. And but I have 3 others just from stand-up. And then my band, Spells, is we're going on tour. We'll actually be coming up the West Coast in February. So I'll be doing that for 11 days with them.
Busy guy.
Yeah, I mean, and then Jujitsu, they were like, when I was in Denver, Professor Jeff Ake, who is a wonderful human being and one of the black belts at Easton, he was like, you know, have you thought about, because I love Jujitsu, this has probably been, when I was here, I don't think you all know what you all did for me. You know, I mean, it's hard. I just show up and I train, but this place, like, I had a nervous breakdown while we were filming the show. Like I was going through a real tough time. And and it was just a really, really dark time. Right around the time I started, and I came here right at the right time. And I forgot that you need that community of people that are not part of your work. They're not part of anything. They're just, it's separate. It's something that's for you, for your betterment, for your enrichment. And I came here and I found that, I met everybody here and all the kooky, crazy characters that
they choke you out.
Oh yeah, but it was
with
good.
love.
Yeah. Cowboy Mouch.
Cowboy Mouch. Here's the picture, right? That AD drew.
It was like the best is I looked over at one point and
my God.
You and Marco were sitting on the corner on the wall as Professor X is cowboy mouching me. And you were all laughing because I was like, you gotta get on the chest. I don't know how he manages to weigh 10,000 pounds like that. And it's insulting. It's kind of an insulting posture.
Because he's sitting on you, you want to top out that.
But he's got his legs open and he's smiling. And but I remember like being like, this is what I needed. It's like a levity to being in this dude's crotch is exactly what I need.
You don't take yourself so serious, right?
Yeah, no. I mean,
take yourself serious when somebody's doing that
to you. You can't. It's hard to view the world's problems as being big when he's sitting on your chest.
Who cares? Like whatever.
Yeah, this is. It's not gonna get any worse.
Come on, man.
It was like one of those moments. Oh my God. One of those moments, like where I was like, this is what I need. It makes you feel better, and I think for me, like I got involved with the show
when you're out of the cowboy mount, right?
Yeah, when I've emancipated myself from the cowboy mouch. I think it's like one of those things where you forget about, like when you get really involved in a career, you forget about self-care and you forget about like taking care of yourself. Because especially like with something like with TV where the money is so enticing and it feeds your ego, right? You get so like hung up on like, I want to be important, I want to like have a show. I want to be a star or whatever. You start to neglect like enriching yourself and doing the things that like make you feel better. And I think that was the same thing for me, kid.
Things.
Yeah. When I came here, I was like, yeah, these savages who beat me up and we say that, but we say that in a loving manner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Man, all my close friends are all from Jujitsu, from us trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
There's a certain bond, right? That kind of never, people that don't do it can't understand.
Yeah. I did a show recently in Boulder. I was doing the show and the door guy, I do this bit about cauliflower ear where I make fun of cauliflower ear, and he heard the bit. His ears were all gnarled up, and I was like, he mentioned, he was like, that joke's so funny, and I was like, do you wrestle? And no, I take Jujitsu. I train at East in Boulder.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, I talked to that dude for the rest of the evening. I didn't talk to any other comics. I'd rather sit around and talk to him about Jujitsu, and we talked about him being an artist, and it's instantly like this bond thing. And when I travel doing stand-up, I'm by myself. I fly to a city and I'm alone. But I bought, like, Shoyroll had that undefeated gi that was like canvas.
Yeah.
And it packs up like that. I could put it in like one of those little plastic ones and suck the air out of it so it gets that thin. I bring that everywhere. And I went to like Gracie, Baja, Edmonton. I went to Black Flag Jiu-Jitsu in Phoenix, Arizona. I just bring it and I call the jiu-jitsu place nearby and I'm like, hey, I'm a comic. I'm here. And those people always come to shows afterwards. They'll be like, dude, I'll come to your show. Like, give them tickets, and I keep in touch with them throughout the time. That to me is what makes you don't feel alone. I don't know if that makes sense, but
totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
Sorry, I'm scattered. That's why the album's called Scattered. But I get tangential. I know you would ask the credit.
You feel connected. Yeah, you feel connected.
It's
feel strong. Yeah, you feel strong.
Yeah,
you have your brothers. You have your family with you.
Yeah, and I think especially relating to like the things that I mentioned when I was a kid, there was a feeling like like the stuff that happened when I was younger, for whatever reason and things that I've worked through, there wasn't anything done about it. When I had finally confessed and told people about what had happened, it was just a different time. And, but as an adult, I was like, no, it's not going to happen to me again. Like, this is something where, hey, like, listen, I may not want to fight, but I'm going to take something from you. You're not going to get out of this scot-free. And that like felt empowering. And I think for people who may have experienced abuse of a certain kind when they were younger, I think that the martial arts and particularly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it puts you at odds with your fears of like being in close quarters with people and things like that and confronting that. I think that's a huge thing. It's an empowerment thing. Like it's not going to happen again. Yeah. You know, you can say that like
changes your mindset, changes all those.
Yeah. You learn to be a wolf again, you know, you learn to like,
instead of being a victim.
Yeah. And I mean, people are victims of things. That does happen. And you can hopefully at some point change the narrative that was one thing that I loved. Like the first guy that I took Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, I remember telling him that I was a pacifist because I didn't like fighting. And I remember it was my sensei, his name was Roland Raymer, and he was like, "That's too bad." And I was like,
"That's too bad."
He was like, "What?" And I'm like, "What? What do you?" Never heard anybody mock being a pacifist. And he was like, "Pacifists never find peace because they're always at odds with the idea of violence." He's like, "The only true way to find peace is to understand violence happens and to learn how to handle it, and then you walk with peace, because then you're not at odds with the idea that it's going to happen to you. You know that if it comes, so be it. I'll deal with it if I have to. If it doesn't, great. I don't ever want to fight. I don't ever want to be in a skirmish or a fight." And I've found that most of the people in this are more pacifistic.
You don't want to.
Yeah. They're like, make fun of themselves and they'll, you know what I mean? They're goofy because you find yourself getting more comfortable with yourself, you know?
So.
Sorry, I ramble.
No.
Just tell me to shut up.
You stopped, you know, you've been sober for how many years now?
This will be 10 years.
10 years. Okay. Yeah. So what was the difference? What kept you?
My son.
Your son.
My son was born in 2005, and unfortunately, he witnessed about 4.5 years of me drinking. But one particular event one night when I lost my shit and tried to fight my sister-in-law's boyfriend, and my wife came back, and I was drinking a lot and really had lost my shit. And thankfully, I was never physically abusive to them, but I was definitely verbally abusive. And I remember looking over and seeing him standing in the doorway watching me have this tirade and screaming. And I just woke up in the morning, and I remember, like, 30 years old, I was like, I'm fucking tired, man. I'm, like, exhausted.
You remember his little face, huh?
Yeah, like standing. He was wearing footy pajamas. He had his hand in the doorway. And he was watching. Recording. Yeah. And I woke up, and I was on the floor, and they were gone. So I was in front of his bedroom, which means he had to step over his dad. And I'll try not to get too choked up, but I remember just thinking like that's not the parent I want to be. I don't want to. He's like, you grew up hating your parents for reasons. Anyway, we all hate our parents for one reason or another. This is not one that I want him to hate me for. He'll learn to resent me because I'm a grumpy dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
for better reasons.
Yeah. I'm always harping on him about trash. Take out the garbage. But I don't want him being like my dad. My old man was an alcoholic too. That's something I can control. And I think it was what I needed to see. Thankfully, I've asked him. He doesn't remember any of those times. We went to Europe. I've never been to Europe. And like 2 years ago, I went for the first time, and we were in London. I was having fish and chips, and I ordered
How old is he now?
He'll be 15 in March.
15.
Yeah. Cool. And so we were having fish and chips, and I ordered this drink that looked like a beer glass. And I thought he was going to pass out. Like, he saw me with this thing that he thought was a beer, and he was like, and because I've been very open in my stand-up about my addiction issues. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, are you drinking? And I was like, oh, no. It's whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. And he was like, oh, and I realized, like, he's as invested in my sobriety as I am. I think he's heard me talk about it enough, but they were waking up and not having to piece together an evening, we all apologize for things we said in the past, but apologizing for things you don't remember saying it's a different kind of humiliation. And so it
Did you find AA? What did you go to AA?
No, I went to a program called the Arapahoe House.
Okay.
And against all better judgment, I stopped going early. I think it's
so this is 10 years. So this is 2010.
Yeah, it took May 23rd of 2000. It'll be 10 years in May. And I think...
did you start Jujitsu around that time?
I started a few years later. A couple years later, because I had taken a break from doing the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. That was a big thing. Because what happened is that part of the reason people relapse is you're told that when you quit drinking, you're going to feel better. Right. That doesn't happen. You quit drinking and all your problems come roaring forward. Everything you were trying to mask. And my anxiety came really, I started having panic attacks, started dealing with depression again. And Jiu-Jitsu was that panacea. It was that thing that I needed that burned that energy off. I started working out, and then I went to Jiu-Jitsu for the first time. And I like minutia. If I have things that have a lot of finite details to it, I lose myself in those. And I'll notice I've been here for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I didn't think about the world. I didn't think about how uncomfortable I am with myself or how anxious I am in public situations. I'm just focusing on not getting my face choked or cowboy mounched or any number of things, or getting out of cowboy mount. You don't choose to be in cowboy mount. You get put in cowboy mount. Oh
man.
But
nobody wants to get cowboy mount.
No, nobody wants cowboy mount. You know how bad I want a shirt that says cowboy mount spelled phonetically like that.
I tell the guys it's worth 10 points at least, right? In the jiu-jitsu tournaments, 4 points for the mount, but cowboy mount for 3 seconds is 10 points.
You see an IBJJF judge go
10. Oh my God.
And the other person gets 1 negative penalty.
For sure. For letting it happen.
You let cowboy mounts as a negative.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that fight. That's why I say it's yoga with consequences, because I tried yoga. But the problem was that if I got out of my concentration in a move, there was no consequence to it. I was just I'm still in this move, and I just realign myself. So my brain can wander whenever I want. You can't wander in this.
Yeah.
You're going to get smashed.
Keeps you in the moment.
And I leave, and I'm I feel good.
Yeah.
I took a break from myself, and so, yeah, it's I guarantee you I'm going to walk in here one day, cowboy mounts. I'm going to find somebody sitting like this.
And you got to put some spurs on the heels.
If he has, the person in the gi is bleeding.
For the people
on
listening,
the
right? You plant your heels in the ground like you're riding a horse. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then their face is the saddle. It's like the horn. That's the worst part, is my face is right there. And when he's real mean, he grabs the back of the head and he pulls up, and it's but yeah.
Man, when you talking about your son being invested with you, and when you're having the beer, it kind of reminds me of my dad. My dad, he got a 33-year for AA.
Really?
Yeah, metal coin, and he's in a home, so his health isn't so good. But I grabbed the coin because stuff disappears over there,
Yeah.
And I felt I don't know, not that I want it, but just super proud,
Yeah.
That
do you remember? I mean, you don't have to answer this. Do you remember him drinking?
No, I don't. And he feels really happy that I never saw him drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, my sister did, my older sister, but I never did.
And was he what was he like when he wasn't drinking? Like the sober
when he
dad?
wasn't drinking. I mean, he's like a hard worker and kind of stressed. He had a tough childhood as well.
Yeah.
He Not that he just verbally abused. He was adopted.
Yeah.
So he remembers World War II. being taken from the nuns and, just all these like kind of traumatic events, never feeling like, he was good enough, right?
Was he quiet?
He was a really smart guy. He was like a civil engineer.
Yeah.
He taught himself like after he changed career paths, like computers.
Yeah.
Not so quiet but when he would drink, he would definitely become like the life of the party.
Yeah.
And so I guess since he was younger is when I heard him tell the stories at some of those AA meetings.
I always wonder about that.
And my mom and, family members say that.
A lot of people will say that, like, when their parents quit drinking, that some people say, like, that they're, and I can relate to that their parents become a little more complicated after that point. Because there is, like, you are covering something up.
Right.
You're doing it for a particular reason when you're drinking like that, So I often wonder, like, was that dad that you saw later on, was he a little more like tense or like that kind of thing?
I feel like he's the same, I think it was, for me, I guess, I feel like he was the same,
Yeah.
He was happy and, when, and then he had his self-destructive tendencies still,
Yeah.
And he definitely, but never had another drink.
Yeah. That's crazy.
33 years. So he disappeared like 5 years of my childhood, and then he came back in the picture, and he's been sober ever since.
That's.
And so I felt that when I got that, when they gave him the coin, I felt like.
Did you?
I was proud.
It? You still have it?
I kept it, for sure.
Was it something?
I feel like it's one of my, my world championships thing, because 33 years, like, made me proud. Like, the fact that he had the willpower to kind of never have a drink again.
Was that something he valued a lot growing up? Did he talk a lot about like how many years sober he had?
Yeah, he was in AA. He was, he's always very involved.
Yeah,
and he had to go to his AA meetings, and he was very like, he kept it in check.
I think I was so scared of those because I don't like group settings. I'm very uncomfortable in those kinds of. It's funny. I'm a comic, and I mean,
everybody's different, right?
Yeah,
but it worked for him. And even now, when he's in a wheelchair, and we took him to that meeting, and people around in the room, he had helped them, when he was still walking around and stuff like that. And he got up on his feet, could barely stand up and walk, but he stood up, proud, and said his speech really, really pretty clear for everybody to understand, even though he couldn't really talk so well and, even stand up so well.
Yeah.
But he stood up tall and said his, told everybody, put it down.
That's
some advice, and
that's their community, and I
made me proud. Made me proud that he had the willpower, the willpower, the mental fortitude to kind of just overcome.
Which is probably where you get yours. I mean,
for sure, it doesn't hurt, right? To see that, and made me proud.
Being battling out of addictions, it's not an easy thing, and because there's so many different tentacles stuck in, and.
Yeah, so his childhood, and then you combine that with like Vietnam. He went to Vietnam. He was a Green Beret, so he saw a lot of stuff. And he never talked about the stuff, until now when he's in the home. We thought that was going to be it. He's losing his mind, dementia stuff, but he's okay. He's just kind of his health things are he's not doing
how
so
old
well.
is he? If you don't mind.
He's not that old. He's 73. Like my mom's the same age, and she's traveling to Europe. She's a beast,
Yeah,
moving around, but stress and
that's hard living. Stress is something.
Not taking care of yourself, not moving, not eating well, right?
I think that'll kill you quicker. The stress will kill you.
Oof. Yeah. So he has a lot of things, right? He has a lot of things. That for sure weren't good for him. But
well, I hope
he got that coin. He got that coin for me. I was like, he did it,
Yeah, I think
because he's probably not going to hit up any bars in his wheelchair.
It's
just reminded me of you talking about your son seeing you with that thing, and I was like, that's.
It's something I valued, and
he's interconnected with that.
Yeah, I'm more likely. I mean, that's the thing. You have to, if you're an addict, you have to resist self-destructive tendencies.
For sure.
So I just try to, but you do a lot for your kids, as we know. They change your view on mortality and it's weird. They're like mirrors, They come out and they're like a giant mirror, and then they stand in front of you and you're like, holy shit, I'm ugly. I'm doing a lot of really ugly things. Why do you don't look at me? They are good, like, reflection. It's a good way to like look at yourself and be like, I don't want to be this anymore. And I'm glad he did that. And I'm sure it's changed your childhood. definitely did.
Yeah, he came back. He came back, so I had a dad.
Yeah,
which I couldn't have had.
I mean, I can't.
It's one of his things that he's been most grateful about is getting a second chance.
How old's your sister? Is she much older?
She's 2.5 years older than me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
you only one sibling?
I have two.
Yep.
I have one half sister.
Yeah,
younger sister.
Yeah, my brother is 4 years older than me. I want him to fight. I want him
to. You want to beat him up?
I just want to fight him.
You want to kick his ass? Be honest.
Yeah. No. I just want to fight my brother.
You want to cowboy mount him?
Cowboy mount is coming, Bobby. Yeah. No, I want him to learn to fight. I would love for him to do so, but he's the sweetest human being, and he would never do that. Is
he in Maine?
Yeah. He's an artist. He's an amazing, he can paint and draw anything. He's and he's very different. I was very much the black sheep. I'm the one that
That's interesting. Both of you guys are artists, pretty much. Right?
Yeah.
Ways, right?
We come
different
from a
mediums.
family. My dad's side. French Canadians are very artsy people, even though they were they were troubled people. But a lot of artists, a lot of musicians in our family, and on my dad's side, my mom's side, they were just very hardworking, blue collar people. But he's very much very different than I am. He's very soft spoken, and I tend to be like, ah! And I was gone. My parents, everybody lives in New England. I was gone either.
He wasn't messed with at that summer camp.
No, and he never. And I went.
He was 4 years older or younger?
4 years older.
Older, okay.
So I think it was a different age group. But this camp has since been sued umpteen times.
Oh, man.
And the director of that camp was part of the Spotlight articles that the Boston Globe did. So the guy who ran the camp was outed as part of that. There's currently an investigation because I finally stood up and filed charges against them while I was living here, while I was training here. Oh, wow. I flew back.
That's
and
part of it, huh?
Yeah. Was like, my mom was like, you want me to go down? You want me to come with you? I'll be support. And I was like, no, I have to do this on my own. And so I flew to Maine, and then we're to Boston, and I drove to New Hampshire, to Gilmington, New Hampshire, and went to the police department there and met with detectives and somebody from the prosecutor's office. And I gave a taped statement on what happened, and now there's an investigation that's going on into it, and there are number of accusations, and I mean, they've settled constantly because that was just pervasive at that time. And it's been weird because I don't hate religion, I'm not somebody who espouses a lot of negative vitriol about religion. I think there were a lot of bad people.
It's unfortunate,
that made their way, but it's not, faith doesn't
like
do
my
this.
mom. Yeah, like my mom and my grandparents or my grandmother, they were very like Catholic, right? Religion, Hispanic,
Yeah.
And so, I had a good experience, I guess with my time, but it's the stuff you can't deny that what's going out there,
Yeah, well, the Northeast was a prime place for this to happen.
I mean, it just seems like everywhere, the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah,
unfortunately.
It's but like I said, it's a faith, and the belief in God is totally different than the people who work there. And people need something to tether them. I think we need, my mom is still very devout and goes to church, and I
was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And which is,
it's ingrained in her since she was a little girl.
Yeah, but she loves, it's her community.
Yeah.
Does my mom agree with how the church has handled this or the people? No, my mom is not a sociopath. She understands it and is very critical that there were a lot of bad people they employed at that time. And I hope that they're smarter than they were before about who they bring in. And holding those people accountable is important. But it doesn't change. I would never degrade my mom for believing in God or it's a foundation of who she is and also how she grew up. I mean, the French are immigrants. The French Canadian and Maine were immigrants. They all came from Quebec province and came down. People hated them because they took factory jobs. And so there was a lot of hatred towards the French Canadians in Maine. And so...
Oh, so they were from Quebec, not from France?
No, they were from Quebec province. Yeah. So, and my mother's family, they're Acadian French, which are the type of French that you hear about in New Orleans. And so they all immigrated here.
Right.
And so you know how it is with, in this country, Catholics were very involved with church because it was the community that they could rely on when the rest of the people around them didn't want them there. And so I understand its place in their history as well. And I think it's, you know, but this individual or these individuals, you know, to me, you still have to stand up to them, you know, so.
Let's go back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
What has jiu-jitsu done in your life for you? What has it done for you in your life?
Well, it's disrupted my marriage. I don't want to make
that's a given. Come on, man.
Every time she sees a new gi coming
how's that helped you? How's that helped you? We talk about how it helped you, and you know.
It's, you know, I mean,
we did, you know, you're going through a hard time. You came into legacy. Like, you know, how does it balance you?
It's the thing that when I'm having a bad time, I do now. When I'm frustrated, I go to jujitsu. You know, the day you gave me, when I got my purple belt here, I wasn't expecting it. I'd come in and a good friend of mine's, a friend of mine had passed away. He was older. He was like a second father. And I was really sad about that. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to come into class. I wanted to stay at home, but I was like, I'm going to go to class.
Random. Yeah,
and I still came and trained, and it put things back into perspective. This is the way life works. The cycle continues, and you got to keep moving and doing positive things. And so it's also, you know what I tell people? It's taught me how to lose. You got to learn
how to lose.
You got to learn how to lose.
How to lose. Yeah, that's it.
Sometimes in jiu-jitsu,
that's it.
You're the better trained person. You've been doing it longer. You go regularly, and somebody comes in and they submit you who shouldn't. They didn't do the technique properly. It was poor. That's just life. Like sometimes you just get beat, you know, and you tap and you get back up. That's what I had monogrammed on my belt, was fall at 7, rise at 8, that Japanese proverb, you know, like just, you're going to fall 7 times. Just keep getting up, get up. And it taught me to like lose, like, don't be mad about it. Don't be like, let your ego, don't like immediately punish the person afterwards. Sometimes you lose. You just
accept it,
and like
move forward.
And just pick yourself back up. Be bummed about it. You know, I mean, like take your time to feel bad and lick your wounds, and then you just keep going. And I think that that's like a big thing that it taught me for sure.
Yeah. So many things, right? It's like, okay, how's jiu-jitsu helped you?
How's
it made your life better?
My wife, it's made my life better going to class, because my wife doesn't have to talk to me about jiu-jitsu, because she's like, go talk with those people over there about that.
You know, like AD, you know AD.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how, you know, like people, why don't you go to happy hour, you know? And he's like, my happy hour is jiu-jitsu, right? So instead of going out drinking, you know, he comes and does jiu-jitsu instead.
Yep.
And then he's kind of recruiting the guys from Disney and like the studios to come and do jiu-jitsu. And so he has his own happy hour of people doing constructive things that are good for their health, right?
Yeah. There's so many different ways that it can go too. You know, I mean, I this, for better or worse, it's all on what you focus on. People think because you take martial arts, you obviously, like, people will joke or say like, oh, like Ben fights or whatever, like that don't know me that well. Like, I freely admit I love sport jiu-jitsu. I don't know how well I would do in a fight. I'm not big on striking. I'm not a very good, solid wrestler at jiu-jitsu. I just love the game of it. I tend to pull guard a lot and things like that, which is tough in a conflict in a street.
Man, if something happens, you can defend yourself.
Right.
For sure. You know?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think, that gives you a peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
And,
it's the furthest thing from my mind when I show up, though. Is like, I'm coming here to learn to fight. I look at it like old men in the park playing chess. I show up.
And I think, too, like, right, that like, even if somebody, you go against some big, strong guy, the fact that you know how to control yourself under stress, under like a kind of a fight situation, is going to be a game changer. That guy's going to be winded in 10 seconds or 20 seconds. As long as you don't let him knock you out, right, you're probably okay, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you found that with your, like, I mean, it's weird talking to you. You've been doing it forever. So when I'm like talking about what I've learned, I'm like, you learned this like in the early 2000s, probably
90s, yeah.
Yeah, or 90s.
Yeah.
That's what's funny to me.
Brazil in the 90s. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy, but I think like, I don't think about the fighting aspect. I don't think about, I think about coming in, getting rounds in, like getting exercise, continuing to, I don't even think about necessarily about belts anymore.
Yeah.
And when
it's much more than that. It's much more than fighting.
When you put your ego aside and you start not being afraid to lose some of them too, you just get better.
I always tell people it's a tool for you to be your best.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Totally. I recommend it to everybody. My wife is like, I don't want to. My wife is so. She's like, I don't like.
Has she ever tried it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we go to
she
like
want sweat in her eyeballs.
She's so hung up on the sweat part of it, and she doesn't. She loves no gi when she does it. She'll only do no gi because she does not like putting on the gi because she's like, it's this like wet snowsuit by the end of it, and she's like, it feels gross. But no gi she does, and when we go to like the beach when we were living here, that was what they would turn into as jujitsu lessons. So I would let her hip toss me into the sand.
Nice, cool.
But
I always say that, like, well, I want everybody to do jiu-jitsu, but not everybody. It's not for everybody. Like somebody sweating in your eyeball or in your mouth.
Yeah,
it can happen.
That's the worst.
But,
is when somebody's percolating like a coffee maker straight into your mouth and your eyes are towel up.
Yeah.
But
I always get people to do tack fits, if they can't do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I've talked to you about it.
Yeah.
But you get the same kind of benefits.
Do you that became the thing that really like changed for you as well? Like that was that new thing. Do you this is going to sound like a weird question. Do you have to find something you're not good at every so often to like learn
for
again?
Sure, right?
Yeah.
I've kind of been saying like your brain needs like the challenge. It needs newness, right?
Yep.
It needs challenge and newness for sure to be healthy.
Right. It prevents rigidity.
Right. So you get yourself excited for sure. You always should be learning, always changing things up, right?
Is that what you found with TACFit when you first did it? Was this challenge?
I was just so tight. I was so tight I couldn't put my seatbelt on. And this guy that created it, right, that started it, he helped me for one of my UFC fights years ago, and I got thrown on my head. And he showed me some movements that I could heal myself with, right? And it was really that, but he opened my mind up to all these different things, but I never stopped thinking about it. And so 4 years ago, I finally went to one of the certs, a little bit over 4 years ago. And man, I was like, okay, cool. I get a second chance to do it.
Yeah.
And in the process, I had a lot of things, like some neurological things, and been knocked out at some different things. And I was even diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, I remember.
And man, in the process, like, forget the MS, man. Like, cause I see it with everybody that trains it, they move better, they feel better. They get all the benefits that you really get through jiu-jitsu, like that mindfulness, that body awareness, right? And you get hurt, and I think of it for jiu-jitsu, right? But you get really the good structure and that breath awareness, right? Of course, you get it with jiu-jitsu, but it kind of breaks it down. And sometimes like you get hurt, things happen, right? And you can heal yourself with the movements,
right?
But also, that's healing yourself, but you can prevent injuries, right? Because all your tissues and your brain, right? Your maps where you're at in space, everything just gets clearer, and so your performance improves too, right?
Right.
So you prevent injuries and your performance improves, and so it's really helped me improve myself, my jiu-jitsu, my movement, and especially from where I was like 4 years ago. It was hard for me to put my seatbelt on, like I was saying, but then also just helped me become a better teacher. And I feel, when I say like I'm just a couple straps on my white belt because I've been really studying hard and like going like all in, but I really feel like a beginner still, But, I want to merge it more and more with jiu-jitsu. It's really like jiu-jitsu and martial arts broken down, reverse engineered. It's like a martial art, but just with yourself.
I've noticed that with people who are successful and who do a lot of different things, there's this where you can't help but go completely deep into it. Like you immediately are, when you find something that clicks, it connects with you.
It works, Yeah. It's worked with me, works with everybody that does it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it goes so well with my, with jiu-jitsu, my life's work, really.
Do you ever think you'll stop training jiu-jitsu?
No, especially because I have TACFIT now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of my friends, they're hurt. They go to the doctor, surgeries, and they're just a mess, you know, and they can't really train jiu-jitsu with joy, right? Because they're in so much pain. You start to add on the years, your body adapts to those positions, right? And so, you know, with TACFIT, you move yourself in all the different ranges, all the different positions that you can move, and so you stay healthy because of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, in jiu-jitsu you do too, right? But certain things get stronger, other things get weaker, so it just really balances you out.
Yeah.
So that's why. Well, now I know I will be because of the TACFIT, you know.
Yeah, I often wonder when you have as many stripes on your belt as you do, like if there's a part of it that gets old.
Yeah, I mean it's given me it's changed my mindset really.
Yeah.
Just how deep the rabbit hole goes, you know. It's changed my mindset and how it just makes me appreciate jiu-jitsu like all over again.
Yeah. Like
the power of it, what it can do for people.
Yeah.
And it's helping me understand things better, you know, at a much deeper level.
Do you feel that way about capoeira?
Well, jiu-jitsu is my life, you know.
Yeah.
So I love capoeira because we're also moving in different positions, and so I like it because it's teaching me it's hard for me, right?
Yeah.
And so because it's hard, I want to keep doing it, you know.
Yeah.
Until I'm good, you know. It's hard.
That's I think
even going on doing the handstands and just I'm like, I don't want to do it, you know. But I keep doing it.
There's like a fear of. I think if I could make somebody like a formula for greatness, you just have to take away. You don't have to take away all fear, but just the fear of being bad at something, and that's like. I notice that with a lot of people that are good at this. They're just not afraid to be bad at something. Yeah. Like
this with everything, right?
Right.
Everything.
Like I'll do any, and sometimes it entices me more when I'm bad at it. I'm like, no, you're gonna regret this because I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna get so good at this, and that's how my brain works because I just will think like, oh, damn it, I'm not good at it. I gotta, you know, and I
mean, I think jiu-jitsu is so special, right? Because you hit all the things like the community, the connection, the human connection, the challenge, right? I mean, everything's always new, right? Everything, there's never like the same role that you have.
Yeah.
So it's just never ending, right? It's never ending.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Because goals suck. I'll say this. I've been saying this. Goals suck. And I'm a very non-goal oriented person now because I found that when you achieve a goal, what happens? You just want another goal. But if you learn to love the process, and jiu-jitsu is one that people stay with a while because there is no end goal. It's not finished. It's
never finished.
Yeah,
right?
it's this growing, living thing that's always evolving. Guards are changing, everything. So it's like when you think you've got it, holy shit, someone came up with something new. I've got to learn that now, you know? And your brain goes in that direction and you can't get caught in thinking it's ever going to end. So then it kind of becomes this eternal practice because of that.
That's it.
And so that's why I enjoy it because if things are finite and I reach that, I'm like, you know, and this won't end.
Done, yeah. It's never gonna end. Yeah.
I love the process, and I think that's the secret to like becoming good at something is don't look for anything out of it. Just learn to love doing it. Love tying your belt. Love putting your gi on. Yeah,
that's it.
So
man. What do you have going on right now? What are some of the things? You're in LA right now, visiting from Colorado?
Yep. So I live kind of bounce back and forth right now until I sell that next thing, and then hopefully I'll be back in here full time again as well. Nice. And right now I'm recording a new album that'll be out on 800 Pound Gorilla Records out of Nashville. That'll be out this summer. My band Spells. Anybody can follow us. It's at Spells Rules on Twitter, and we're going on tour. We'll be in Southern California in February. It's good pop, garage, punk rock. And then I have a podcast. I have two podcasts. One that's coming out called The Grolics Saves the World. That'll be on...
The Grolic?
The Grolics Save the World. That'll be coming out in January. And then I have one that's up right now called 97.9 The Rat Race, which is that... I don't know if you remember, I used to play a gag on my wife where I wake her up with this fake morning.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I watched that video. I showed it to my wife too.
So I have this whole podcast that's me doing that character, and it's a fake drive time radio.
Hilarious.
And so, yeah, lots going on, but and then find me on a mat anywhere. But,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, how can people find you?
Just at BenRoy00 on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm on Facebook, just Ben Roy. I have a fan page in my regular one, so yeah. And you can find all my albums on Spotify and whatever.
All the platforms.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. This is you're kind of an enigma to me as well. You're like this very, like even now you're like kind of sit silently and you're like I can't thank you enough for what you all did and like welcoming me in and letting me be a part of the culture here and the community here. It happened, shit happens when you need it, and it was at a time when I really needed it, and so it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, man. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for being you, and keep being awesome,
dude. Right on. I don't know how this ends.
Thank you, brother.
Dude, thank you.